Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Dimas Aditya Hanafie. I'm from State University of Makassar, English Education. Today I will present my research proposal titled English Major Student Strategies and Online Learning During the COVID-19 Pandemic. Chapter 1, Introduction. Uh, First is background. The COVID-19 pandemic has given a huge impact on all aspects of the human life, including education. The infectious disease, called coronavirus or commonly known as COVID-19, is a deadly virus that can transmit so quickly if people are close to each other. The emergence of this virus creates conditions in which all people have to carry out routines such as work, worship, and study at home. The COVID-19 pandemic transformed the whole education process to online, especially English language education, which has been transited to e-learning in most universities worldwide. This pandemic also forced the Indonesian government to replace all education levels and learning activities in order to manage home learning and support distance learning, particularly in higher education. Online education programs, also known as online learning, have grown in popularity over time because they enable teachers to teach with less tasks and minimize the time-consuming task of marking and checking. Online learning tools can be any application or program that connects to the internet and has a profoundly positive impact on both lecturers and learners while also assisting the teaching process. Carrying out online learning gives some challenges to both lecturers or teachers and students. Technical issues are the major challenges by EFL learners in online learning. It deals with internet connectivity problems, accessing classes, and downloading courses materials problems. In line with this, Norton Ingram and Nugroho pointed at the same issue related to unstable network, lessened social interaction that caused less understood materials, and weakened commitment in learning. The problems of online learning also apply to English major students, especially at the university level. As the major is English study, students have to improve the 4 skills that need to be mastered in English, which are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Students in English major find some difficulties in adapting the new way of learning because of several reasons, such as lack of real English language practice and discussion with the teachers and their classmates. Online learning difficulty can also be from internal factors which come from the students' own selves, such as physical and psychological constraints. In order to deal with difficulties, learners can actively involve in controlling their learning by using strategy. They complete the tasks and process the input by employing a variety of language learning strategies, especially in online environment. Oxford differentiates the types of language learning strategy into 2 types. First is direct strategies, and the second is indirect strategies. First, direct strategies are used directly in dealing with a new language. The 3 kinds of strategies are memory, cognitive, and compensation strategies. The second strategy is indirect strategies, which are used for general management of learning. The 3 kinds of belonging to this category are metacognitive, affective, and social strategies. The impact of online learning in an AFL context and how it has changed COVID-19 is a crucial investigation to determine the problems, barriers, and recommendations. This investigation may uncover several flaws in online learning and what we need to improve in the future, as well as how to best serve students, instructors, parents, and policymakers. Unfortunately, there is still a lack of empirical information regarding the strategy used by English major students in dealing with online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, it is essential to conduct the investigation on how English major students use strategies in online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. Research questions. Based on the problem discussed in the background, the researcher formulates the research questions as follows. First, what are the strategies used is used by the most English major students in online learning. Second, what are the reasons students chose those learning strategies? Objectives of the research. Concerning the questions of the research, the researcher states the specific objectives of the research as follow: to find out the strategies used by English major students in online learning. Second, to find out the reasons students choose the learning strategies in online learning. Significance of the research. The results of the study can clearly describe how to analyze online learning strategies in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. The results of this study are expected to be useful for the development of educational aspects, especially related to the technology and education. This research can be practical information for all students as an alternative model of learning independently at home by trying the different strategies that might help to improve students' language learning after applying the strategies. Also, students can have a new experience in learning English. Besides, this research can be a practical reference for lecturers or teachers in teaching and motivate them to be more creative in teaching English in online environment. Next, Chapter 2, Review of Related Literature. Theoretical Review. Number 1, Language Learning Strategy. Definition of strategy. Oxford points out learning strategies are specific actions taken by learners to help their learning, to make the learning easy, faster, more enjoyable, more self-directed, more effective, and more transferable. In line with this, O'Malley and Charmut state that learning strategies are special thoughts or behaviors that individuals use to help them comprehend, learn, or retain new information. Next, types of learning strategies. Oxford divided learning strategy into two major types: direct strategies and indirect strategies. Direct strategies are used directly in dealing with a new language. These strategies are beneficial to the students because they help store and recover information. The kinds of direct strategies are memory, cognitive, and compensation strategies. Indirect strategies will help the learners to regulate the learning process. This strategy can work together with direct strategies. Differently, indirect strategies are applied without direct engagement, so the learners are not tied up to some direct steps. The kinds of belonging to this category are metacognitive, affective, and social strategies. Next is direct strategy group, memory strategy. Memory strategies are based on simple principles like laying things out in order, making association, and reviewing. These principles are employed when a learner faces challenges of vocabulary learning. The words and phrases can be associated with visual images that can be stored and retrieved for communication. Many learners make use of visual images, but some find it easier to connect words and phrases with sound, motion, or touch. B. Cognitive strategy. Cognitive strategy can be considered as one of the most popular strategies along with metacognitive strategies. This strategy manipulates or transforms target language by repeating, analyzing, or summarizing. Some actions for this strategy are practicing, receiving and sending message, analyzing and reasoning, and creating structure for input and output. C. Compensation strategy. Compensation strategy is more popular as guessing strategy. In this type of strategy, the learners will guess the meaning of some sentences because of insufficient knowledge of the target language. This strategy is usually used when the learners are lacking vocabulary and grammar. Learners can also use own life experience to interpret target language meaning. Next strategy group is indirect strategy. Metacognitive strategy. Metacognition basically refers to thinking about thinking. Metacognitive learning strategies are divided into three similar phases: centering the learning, planning the learning, and evaluating the learning. The aim of centering the learning is to give a focus to the learner so that the attention could be directed towards certain language activities or skills. Arranging and planning learning help learners to organize learning process so they may get maximum benefit from their energy and effort. Evaluating learning helps learners to evaluate the problems faced in learning process. Next is affective strategies. These strategies are used to overcome affective factors such as emotion, attitude, and motivation. Those affective factors have high influence in learning process. Good language learners control their attitudes and emotion about learning and understand that negative feelings will suppress learning results. Next is social strategy. The types of social strategies are asking questions, cooperating with others, and empathizing with others. These types of learning will help learners to improve their listening and learning speaking skills. Also improve their writing skill if they do it by writing letters or internet chatting. Number 2 is online learning. The definition of online learning. Online learning refers to the intentional use of network information and communication technology in teaching and learning. It is a newer version or an improved version of distance learning which gives access to learning experience via the use of some technology. Through online learning, the material provided to students can be accessed anytime and from anywhere. Besides getting material that can be enriched or equipped with a variety of supporting learning resources including multimedia that can be supported by teachers. Next is forms of online learning. There are two major online learning models for teacher-led and semester-based remote learning. Synchronous learning. This form of online learning is entirely done in real time with teacher facilitating live discussion and lectures. This form of online learning requires both teacher and students to join the learning session at a set time, despite both can be situated in different parts of the world. The electronic media available for synchronous learning including audio video conference, chat and instant messaging session, and application sharing. Asynchronous learning. This form of learning involves self-paced or self-contained learning and offers greater flexibility for students compared to synchronous learning. This flexibility enables students to study at their own pace in their own time. Unlike synchronous learning, reference materials are readily available for students to access. The electronic media available for asynchronous learning, including audio-video streams and databases. A common used media in online learning are Zoom, Google Classroom, and WhatsApp Messenger. Conceptual framework. As this research aims to find out language learning strategies used by English major students in online learning during COVID-19 pandemic, the researcher will use classification from Oxford, who divide the strategies into two major types, direct strategies and indirect strategies. The direct strategies are used directly in dealing with the new language. The kinds of direct strategies are memory, cognitive and compensation strategies, while the indirect strategies are used for general management of learning. The kinds of belonging to this category are metacognitive, affective, and social strategies, which cover all classes of language learning strategy. Next, Chapter 3, Research Method. First, research design. The design of this research is qualitative case study. Ari et al. Stated that qualitative research focuses on understanding social phenomena from the perspective of the human participants. In this research, the researcher will focus on describing and explaining about strategies that are used by English students in online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, research participants. In this study, the participants are students of English education study program at University Negeri Makassar. A purposive sampling method will be employed to select the participants. Purposive sampling enabled the researcher to choose the people to be studied using a small sample size based on the people meeting certain characteristics. In choosing the participants, the researcher uses purposive sampling with criteria. First, the students are measuring English education study program. Second, the students join online classroom during pandemic of COVID-19 from 2020 to 2022. Next is research instrument. The first instrument is questionnaire. The questionnaire will be used is strategy inventory of language learning, or commonly known as SEAL, by Oxford, which consists of 50 statements with 6 strategy groups and 2 classes categories: direct strategies and indirect strategies. Their choice will be measured by using Likert scale, which consists of 5 options: never, rarely, sometimes, usually, and always. The questionnaire will be given via Google Forms to students at English departments. In this table, we can see there are 2 strategy classes, direct and indirect. There are consist of 50 items. Number 1 to number 9, they are related to how students remembering more effectively. Number 10 and to 23, how students use their mental process. Number 24 to 29, how students compensate their missing knowledge. Number 30 and 38, how students organize and evaluate their learning. Number 39 to 44, how students manage their emotions. And 45 to number 50 are related to how students learn with others. Next item is interview. This research will use interview to support the questionnaire results. After distributing questionnaires, the researcher will interview several students by giving them some questions related to learning strategies. There will be some main points in the interview. They are first, students' understanding of learning strategy, students' activities in learning English via online environment, how students learn and manage English learning during COVID-19 pandemic. D is the most dominant strategy aspect that used in learning process, and the last is the reasons they use the strategy. Next is data collection procedures. In collecting the data, the researcher uses several steps. First, preparing the instrument in the form of questionnaire and interview questions. Second, trying out the questionnaire to know the validity of the items. Third, distributing the questionnaire to the participants via Google Form. Fourth, collecting the questionnaire from the participants. Number 5, interviewing some samples to get supporting data. 6, displaying the data in the table distribution. And last, tabulating and analyzing the student strategies from the student's response to the instrument. E. Data analysis technique. In this study, the researcher will use technique of data analysis based on Miles, Huberman, and Saldana, which is involving 3 steps: data reduction, data display, and conclusion, drawing, or verification. First is data reduction. The first step in analyzing qualitative data involves data reduction. Data reduction is the process of selecting, focusing, simplifying, abstracting, blocking the themes and patterns, and discarding unnecessary. Firstly, the researcher will collect data through questionnaire and interview. The researcher then transcribes the data. In transcribing the data of interview, the researcher puts codes for each question and answer so they can easily find. The irrelevant data which are not related to research question will be discarded. The irrelevant data is the data no relation to the theme of the study but related to the research. Next, after collecting and reducing the data, the researcher will display those data descriptively. Next is data display. The second step is data display. A display is an organized, compressed assembly of information that permits conclusion drawing and the action. In the process of the reducing and displaying the data, it was based on the formulation of the research problem. They are: what are strategies used the most by English major students in online learning, and what are the reasons students choose the learning strategies. This step is done by presenting a set of information that is structured and possibility of drawing conclusion, because the data obtained during the process of qualitative research usually in the form of narrative, thus requiring simplification without reducing its contents. After displaying the data, a conclusion is drawn. The last step is the conclusion drawing or verification. This type of qualitative data analysis is conclusion drawing and verification. From the start of data collection, the qualitative analysis is beginning to decide what things mean is noting regularities, patterns, explanations, possible configuration, causal flows, and propositions. I think that's all for today. That is my presentation for my research proposal. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.